The Florida State Seminoles were one of college football's premier must-see TV teams in 2023. They ran their entire regular season championship and capped it off with the ACC championship.
Yeah.
Now, hearing all of that, you would have thought this is a playoff lock team. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to get their chance to compete for a national championship. But with an injury to their field general quarterback, Jordan Travis, late in the season, it cost them their chances of competing for a national championship as the committee put a one-loss Alabama team in over the undefeated Florida State Seminoles. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the TNT Smoke Factory. I'm your host, TJ Tilford, alongside my dad, Terrence Tilford, and we're here to bring you a unique look at college football, both inside and outside the lines. Today, we're talking about the Florida State Seminoles, how they'll do in their 2024 season as they seek revenge and try to avenge that team from last year that was robbed of a playoff chance.
Absolutely. And I think it was a robbery. They should have at least given them a chance to go out there, given the fact that they had successfully ran the table in their regular season schedule along with the ACC championship game. Now, how did they do that? They did that with a lot of production on the offensive end and some pretty stout guys on the defensive front.
Yeah.
But coming into this year, we're talking about a lot of that production being gone. Now, they had 10 players drafted in the NFL draft in 2024, headlined by quarterback Jordan Travis, running back Trey Benson, and wide receiver Keon Coleman. Right there, you're looking at the highest production that they had on offense came out of those three individuals.
The big three.
The big three, and their big three is gone. Now, add to that, on the defensive front that I mentioned before, you had Jared Verse, you had Brandon Fisk, both in the draft. So you lost that production on defense as well.
Yeah, your top two D linemen.
Absolutely. So all in all, you look at Florida State and you see a team that actually now is in the bottom half of the NCAA in terms of teams returning production.
Yeah. So this is going to be a very new Florida State team, not the same one that ran the table last year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new faces on the Seminoles team. Some things to look out for on offense. They have an experienced offensive line, so that's a good thing.
Always helps.
You always want to come into the season with a good offensive line, know where you stand there.
Yes.
They also bring in transfer quarterback DJ Uiagalelei. This is his second time transferring. He first transferred from Clemson to Oregon State, and then he is also one of those players that's leaving that dying Pac-12. He left Oregon State to come play for Florida State. So he's a very talented quarterback. He gives you a lot in the air and with his legs. It's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts to this Florida State offense. Me personally, I've always had an up and down kind of feel about him, but I think he can really explode in this Florida State offense this year.
And keep in mind, he's returning to the ACC
where he
started it all. And when he was at Clemson, there you saw good sparks of production out of him.
Yeah.
So he's familiar with the teams that he's coming up against. I think that experience may be a notch in favor of that offense in terms of reloading rather than rebuilding.
Now, in terms of receiver, you didn't do that much in the portal. You got Malik Benson out of Alabama and Jalen Brown out of LSU. But I like the way they go alongside this receiving core, a receiving core that has a lot of veteran players. You're looking at a lot of receivers or a lot of seniors in this receiving core, like the names of Ja'Kai Douglas, Kentron Poiter. In the backfield, though, at running back, there's no real home run hitters, in my opinion, but it's a very talented group at the same time. So no big names to look out for, but a talented group nonetheless.
Yeah. And I think the same can be said when we look at their defense. We're talking about, just like offensively, big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
I think what Florida State needs to concentrate on, because they do not have a premier name on that defensive side of the ball. I think what they're going to have to do is focus on group defense. They're going to have to play as a collective unit.
Yeah.
And everybody doing their job. I think they still have enough talent on that side of the ball where they can still have
Yeah.
a successful run in the ACC.
Yeah. The corners need the linemen to get pressure. The linemen
Mm-hmm.
need the corners to make plays. That
And
type of deal.
everybody needs to make tackles.
Yes, that's the biggest part.
Yes.
Now, before we get into our record predictions, we have to talk about the aftershock. Now, like I mentioned before, this is a team that was robbed out of a playoff chance
Mm-hmm.
last year. There are two ways you could come back from that. You could come back looking to avenge that
Mm-hmm.
team from last year,
Mm-hmm.
or you could come back, moping, kind of sad, still sloppy,
Mm-hmm.
and it could take a turn for the worse and end up being a downfall year
Mm-hmm.
for Florida State.
All in all, we're looking at Florida State as having no excuses for not having motivation.
Yeah.
They have all the bulletin board material they'll ever need
Yeah.
in order to, if they have to manufacture some motivation, that can be it. But I think through their spring, through their summer, they should have been grinding with the idea that everyone underestimates us, and without Jordan Travis, we're just nobodies.
Yeah.
They should be looking to stamp their name all through the ACC and demand a spot in the 12-team playoff.
And speaking of underestimate, just earlier today, Paul Feinbaum made some comments saying he doesn't even think that this Florida State team will finish the season ranked.
Mm-hmm.
This is a team that's coming into the season, preseason rankings, they're ranked at number 10. He doesn't even think they'll finish the season ranked.
Mm-hmm.
And as crazy as I want to say that comment is, their schedule is a little bit tougher than it was
Mm-hmm.
last season.
I agree. And when it comes to Paul Feinbaum, there's times where I can go along with him. There's times where I feel like he's way out there, way off center. But in this one, I'd say he may not be totally going on a wild card on this one. There is some justification, or there is some ways that he could justify that claim. But all in all, it'll be justified on the field.
Yeah.
Whether or not Florida State shows up to be that team.
Now, without further ado, let's get into these record predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Starting off with their first game against Georgia Tech. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe this game will be on neutral field. But Georgia Tech, they're a sneaky contender in the ACC. They tend to always give one or two teams trouble throughout their season.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game, I don't think they'll have enough firepower to play against Florida State. This is the game that's going to determine really how Florida State's season goes. We'll see if they come out motivated, like we do believe, to avenge that team from last year.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a blowout win, I think that we'll have to keep an eye on Florida State close throughout this season. But nonetheless, I think Florida State will win the game.
In my opinion, neutral field, away, home, not really going to matter. Anytime I see a conference game as the first game of the season, I look at who's bringing the most firepower.
Yeah.
Because you're still working out some rust. And what can make up for working out rust? Talent. And so because of that, I believe Florida State is going to win this game. And I think they'll win this game pretty soundly.
Now their next game, Boston College. This is a Boston College team with new head coach Bill O'Brien. He was originally hired as the offensive coordinator this offseason at The Ohio State, but he decided to flip and go to Boston College to become their head coach. Nonetheless, I don't think they'll have enough to beat FSU.
And I think Boston College is going to be a team to watch out for in years to come.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first year under Bill O'Brien, I don't think that they are going to be able to have what it takes in order to put together an offense, a complete game that can beat Florida State. Yeah. Again, you're looking at a team that has 2 ACC games right in a row, still at the beginning of the season. Because of that, I'll yield to talent, and I believe Florida State will win the game. Now, that one will probably be much closer than the Georgia Tech game.
Yes. Their next game, I believe, will be even closer. They're playing Memphis. This is one of the top teams in the ACC or AAC this year, not to be confused with the
Right.
ACC. They have one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football, Seth Hennigan. He will lead this offense, which was one of the best in the AAC last year, one of the best in all of college football.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is trying to make strides, but I think due to their defense still rebuilding a little bit, it's going to cause some trouble. I look for this to be a very high scoring game,
Mm-hmm.
but with the game being at Florida State, the Seminoles, that crowd,
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll cause some troubles for Memphis, and I think Florida State will win. But don't be surprised if Memphis represents the group of five in the college football playoff this year. One group of five team has to make it. It could be Memphis.
Okay, I like that prediction. And you kind of stole my thunder on saying it's going to be a high scoring game. I look for this to be a throwback to the Big 12 games. There's not going to be much defense on the field, I'd imagine, and I think the score is going to get run up pretty high. I would not be surprised to see this game go into overtime
Yeah.
to determine the winner. But all in all, I do think it's going to be a close one. Florida State wins in a close one.
Their next game against Cal. This is a team that has 14 straight losing record in conference play in the Pac-12, and I don't think it'll get any better in the ACC.
Mm-mm.
They do have an explosive running back in Jaden Ott, though, but that won't be enough to beat
Mm-hmm.
this Florida State team. I expect Florida State to win big.
Yes. I mean, it's Cal. As you said, losing is their tradition. Not much to talk about Florida State.
Now, their next game at SMU. SMU
Could
is
be
no
very interesting.
run-over. The Mustangs are a tough team.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of my favorite teams to play as in the new college football game. They're that good. They also ran the AC last year. They won the championship. They have two capable quarterbacks. I do believe Preston Stone's going to start, though. But this is a team that's riding high off of last year, their first year in the ACC. So we'll see how it goes. Nonetheless, this is going to be a close game, in my opinion. But I think that Florida State, talent wise, I think they're a little bit better, and I think they're better coached. I think Florida State will win this one.
Well, I'm going to lean on the old adage that if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. And I think because of that, SMU will not have the production that they are needing to beat a team like Florida State with that much talent coming in. However, if they settle on a quarterback before that third game and they say this is our guy, then this prediction could change because even with the dual quarterbacks, because of the loss of firepower that Florida State suffered over the draft or through the draft this year, I think it's going to be a closer game than expected.
Yeah.
Florida State wins in a close one.
Now the next game against Clemson, the
Mm-hmm.
Tigers, Dabo Swinney trying to bring this Clemson team back to the glory days of the past. Quarterback Cade Klubnik struggled last year in his first year as a full starter. The defense looks to be strong as usual, and they have a good running back, Phil Maffa, who looks to shine this season. This is going to be another close one, in my opinion. Clemson trying to prove that they're still one of the big dogs of college football.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State trying to take over the ACC completely. This game is at Florida State. If it was in Clemson, I think my prediction could be different. But since it's at Florida State, I'm going to take the Seminoles in this one.
Okay. So we're talking about two teams that are pretty balanced against one another. So because of that, I'm going to take the balance of Clemson to win this game.
To beat Florida State.
I think that with Florida State bringing so much new product into this game, it's going to be a challenge for them to deal with that Clemson defense. I think that'd probably be the stiffest defense that they've seen thus far in the year. Yeah. And I think defense will travel with Clemson. That running game will travel with Clemson, and it'll be enough to pull out a win against Florida State.
Interesting. That's a prediction that could change for me. Depending on how these teams come into that game, it could change for me.
Absolutely.
Their next game at Duke. Now, this is where things get interesting for me. Duke has Manny Diaz, his first year as head coach for the Blue Devils. They bring in quarterback Malik Murphy, a very talented
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. This is a talented Duke team. They were
Yes.
talented last year. They'll be talented again this year. It's at Duke. That crowd can get rowdy and
Mm-hmm.
present some problems. And I'm actually going to take the Blue Devils in this one.
Mm.
Now, the reason I'm taking them is because I believe that Florida State will have played two tough games before that, SMU and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
This will be another tough game, and I think this will be the one that they do drop. I think the Blue Devils will upset Florida State at home.
Okay. And I think the direct opposite, based on some of the things that you mentioned. I think that Florida State will have played two tough games in a row. And I think that the loss to Clemson will kind of steady the ship for them. It'll get them back, focused mentally. And I think that that will be enough for them to win against Duke, because Duke lost some good production on that defense.
Yeah.
And I think because of that loss of production, it'll be enough to balance the scales in favor of Florida State.
Mm. Now, their next game at Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you watched our Miami prediction, you will know that we picked Miami to beat Florida State
Yes.
in this game. Or no, we picked Florida
Florida
State
State
to beat
win.
Miami
Yes.
in this
Yes.
game. The more fall camp goes on, I'm starting to realize this could really change.
Yes.
I said in that prediction that this could change the week of the game. For now, though, for the time being, I'm going to stick to the roots, and I'm going to keep my prediction that Florida State will win this game. But do not be surprised at all if this prediction changes very soon. I think the way these two teams show, or the way these two teams come out the blocks in their first weeks of the season, will kind of determine how this game will go. I'm gonna stick with Florida State, but I'm really starting to lean towards Miami.
Same here. I'm leaning toward Miami winning this game. But for me, what's really going to be the deciding factor is the weeks leading up to that game. I need to see how Cam Ward handles the ball.
Yeah.
Is he able to, keep clear of the turnovers? And if that happens, then I will move my edge probably over to Miami in this game. But I said Florida State first. I'm going to stick with that for now.
Yeah, for now.
For now.
Their next game against North Carolina. This is a team looking to find their stride, as they'll have to replace quarterback Drake May, one of the top quarterbacks taken off of this year's draft. They've got a talented running back in Amarion Hampton. This is a talented group, but there's just not enough there. Not enough there to beat Florida State, and that's why I'm taking Florida State in this one.
Yeah, I look at North Carolina coming in trying to rebuild, because even when they had Drake May, they still I think underachieved.
Yeah,
and
most definitely.
Yeah, and I think that is going to continue into this year. Maybe not in the sense of underachieving, but I don't think that they're going to bounce back and get into situation where they're knocking off some of the best teams in the ACC. So Florida State, I look at them as one of those upper echelon teams in the ACC. I look for them to handle business against North Carolina.
Now their next game at Notre Dame. This looks to be the best year under the Freeman era so far. Definitely his most talented team, in my opinion. They brought in Riley Leonard, quarterback in the transfer portal from Duke. They also still have Jeremiah Love in the backfield, who's going to be really talented. And they always and will this year have one of the top defensive units. I expect Notre Dame to win this game, and I expect Notre Dame to be in the playoffs. That's my hot take.
Yep. I don't disagree with you at all. I think Notre Dame is in a good situation now under Freeman. A lot of talent on that team. Bringing in the new quarterback, I think he's going to add some skill set that they haven't seen there in a while.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be vital to their production on offense. Based on that, I think Notre Dame, being a solid team, because if we ran their schedule, I'd probably have them probably undefeated up to this point. I look for them to keep that motor running, Notre Dame wins that one against Florida State.
Now their next game, Charleston Southern. There's nothing to talk about
Nothing to
here.
talk
This
about.
reminds me of one of those games that Alabama will schedule
Mm-hmm.
late in the season. You know, an unknown opponent.
Mm-hmm.
This will be an easy one for Florida State.
Yeah, this is one of those recovery games.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We've been through some battles leading up to this point. Let's try to get ourselves healthy before we enter postseason. This is one of those games where that they're scheduling that way. Nothing to talk about. Florida State wins big.
Now their final game of the season, their rivalry game against
Mm-hmm.
Florida. The Gators have one of the toughest schedules in all of
Mm-hmm.
college football this year. It was I think they said 8 out of their 12 opponents are ranked in the preseason polls. This is going to be a bad year for Florida. I'm just going to call it out now, and I think this game will be the game that guillotines the Billy Napier era. I think this is the game that eventually will end up getting him fired.
I think by this time, Florida State will. I mean, I'm sorry, Florida is going to be out of gas.
Yeah.
You know, they already don't have a whole lot that they're bringing to the table on offense.
Yeah.
You know, trying to fill a whole lot of holes on that team. We talked about that earlier in one of the
Miami predictions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's going to be the same thing here. It's the last game of the season. I think everybody's probably going to have it packed in by that point. It's already probably going to be a foregone conclusion that Napier's out.
Yeah.
And I look for Florida to lose this game, drop this game, and probably drop it pretty convincingly.
Yeah. So that's our prediction for the Florida State Seminoles this year. I look at this schedule and it could go very well or it could go very bad. I think there's a lot of games that they're capable of losing. I'm looking at Memphis, SMU, Clemson, Miami. Those are 4 games that I predicted them to win that I think they could very well end up dropping. So we'll see how Mike Norvell has his team. You know, will they avenge that team from last year that was robbed of a playoff chance? That was one of the best teams coming down the stretch until Jordan Travis got injured. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they play this year after that disappointing end to last year.
Yeah. Hopefully, again, they come in with the motivation. You shouldn't have to manufacture motivation at this level, but a little manufacturing doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
So they should be able to have what they need, the chip on their shoulder they need to come in and handle business. So, you know, based on my predictions, I have them going like 10-2, potentially 9-3. But I think even at 9-3, it should be enough to get them a spot in the CFP.
At least a spot in the ACC championship
game. Yeah.
A spot in the CFP, I don't know at 9-3, but you'll be primed to at least play for that chance, you know, if you get to the ACC championship. Especially with this Notre Dame game, because it's interesting. Notre Dame is not an ACC opponent.
No.
So if they lose this game, it might not cost them as much as others think it will, since it won't go into their conference record of play. So
yeah, they in the end they should be one of the teams that's there in the ACC championship. I think I honestly may be looking at them in Miami facing off again
in a rematch.
Yeah, because I think Clemson will do what Clemson has been doing lately, and they'll drop some games that they had no business losing. I think that trend may continue, and we might start talking about Dabo Swinney being on the hot seat.
Yeah, even after Clemson paid him all that money these past few years, haven't been good for the Tigers.
What have you done for me lately? That's the song.
Nonetheless, that's our predictions for Florida State. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and hit our notifications. Follow all our channels listed below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.